I have no idea what we're doing.
Do you have any ideas of what we should call our podcast?
I'm calling it Two Ryans until somebody comes up with a better idea.
Two Ryans?
Yeah.
Some guys, some plans.
Two guys, Ryans, five guys?
Yeah.
God, I want a cheeseburger now.
Ooh, we should talk about Kayaktivists.
Okay, so let's recap Kayaktivists. For those of you who aren't familiar with everything that happened.
Ryan, I'll let you take the reins on this one.
What was the name of the ship?
I don't know. It's Shell Oil's ice-breaking vessel, basically. Okay. So they can get to... the Fennica.
The Fennica, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, recap. In Portland, there was a ship here called the Fennica, which is an ice-breaking vessel. It was getting repaired in one of the yards in Portland, and it was getting ready to get underway for the Arctic, where it was going to meet other vessels on an expedition to locate and drill for oil in the Arctic. Greenpeace got wind of this, and they decided to stage a protest. The Fennica is carrying a cap, essentially, for underwater drilling, and that cap is something that these operations have to have ever since episodes like the BP disaster in the Gulf.
And it was part of the Obama administration's why they gave it the okay. Like they would not give the okay for this project unless they had on-hand equipment to cap something that happened,
to prevent another Gulf oil spill. So the drilling cannot happen without that cap present. So anytime you have a single point of failure in a system, technologists, we know what happens. Things are vulnerable and they can break. So Greenpeace instigated a protest, and what they did is they hung from which bridge was it?
So St. John's Bridge. So that's, for anyone who doesn't know, that's the last bridge on the waterways out of Portland. It's a mile from the main harbor where the big ships come in and the big shipping and the big transportation industry is done in Portland, which is far northeast of downtown. It's on the Willamette as it reaches the Columbia.
So these protesters, they hung via ropes or lines or whatever. Several of them staggered across the waterway from the bridge, and then they had people anchoring them up on top of the bridge. And their whole goal was to prevent the Fennica from leaving. They also prevented a lot of other ships from leaving or coming in if they wanted to.
I mean, yeah, Portland isn't known as Portland in any aspect is not like Seattle or San Francisco. We're not like a big shipping hub, but a decent amount of things.
Some shipping going on.
A decent amount of commerce is being done, which is interesting because when I originally caught wind of what the Greenpeace activists were trying to do, it was all about kayaks. They were going to be in a kayak at some point and block the ship from moving. But I mean, then having passionate people get creative and about how they're going to express themselves and say their point. They found that the best place to do it was on the St. John's Bridge, and
they ended up getting some kayaktivists out there too. I don't know how many, maybe a few dozen. I
think enough to cause a commotion. But the real thing was that you have individuals dangling on a rope, and if the ship was going to pass through, it would decidedly kill those people if it passed through.
So the ship gets underway a couple days ago, and it gets up near the St. John's Bridge. It pauses. There's police present. There's news helicopters and the whole bit. And then it turns around. And yay, everybody wins. It came back later that evening. It had a much stronger police presence with it. I believe by that point a couple of people had already been arrested. You had Coast Guard with it. And they, at that point, sort of muscled their way through. I watched it live when it was happening. What I observed was some of the people dangling from the bridge. There was a few missing from the middle, and I'm not sure what happened to them.
From what I read on KGW, which is a local news station, some left because they had like their the emergency, like it was the firefighter, police department, the Coast Guard had like their own climbing rappelling crew there. And they were basically like, you can either leave peacefully or we can do this, and there could be criminal charges.
Didn't they lower them into boats down below?
Yeah, they basically, I don't know how it works, but I mean, something in my mind is going on that they're basically attaching the climber to themselves and cutting the rope. And I think, and like if you're saying, they probably just opened up a big enough hole
Yeah.
To where they only needed 2 individuals to get out of the way and the ship could pass through.
That was pretty much it. And then there was all the kayaks out in the water who were preventing it, and basically just the Coast Guard boats
got
and the
hooks
police
and
boats.
just pulled them out.
Yeah, they just went through and just kind of out of the way. One of the stupid things I saw happen was one of the local television stations. I won't drag them down specifically, but one of the local television stations, the Fennica gets up to the protesters, and it hits reverse on its engines to stop because obviously there's kayaks in the way. And it kicks up some mud in the water, and so you can kind of see this like from the news helicopters, like, oh, there's this big cloud of something brown in the water. The dude on the television decides, oh, there's an oil spill in the Willamette, and starts to, and his colleagues thankfully stressed that he not speculate about what was in the water. So I tweeted to them and called them idiots and said it's mud from the river bottom. So yes, thank you, local news media, for not speculating and causing a panic about an oil spill in the Willamette.
Yeah, but it was really interesting. I think it's just one of those things. I think, at least the people I work with, I think the biggest part about how that affected their lives is the fact that some of them live in St. John's, and it made their commute an hour longer each day. But
ultimately, my perspective is I think it was a very effective protest. It got national attention to the issue of expanding oil drilling operations around the globe. It was relatively peaceful. There weren't any major injuries reported. There weren't a whole lot of arrests reported.
And I was kind of watching it for 2 days, and then the police, as it first started, just were trying to make sure that everyone was safe.
Yeah, the police were very professional about it.
They just wanted to make sure that the individuals that were dangling off the bridge, other people weren't putting those climbers in danger. So they closed off a lane of traffic, and
after seeing really terrible protests in Portland during all the Occupy stuff, I seen a peaceful protest happen that got the message out and was effective and didn't hurt anybody. It was refreshing.
Yeah, regardless of where anyone stands on the issue of Dutch Shell oil company drilling out in the Arctic, at least now, it brought enough attention to form your own opinion.